Every gambler knows that the secret to surviving,
I don't wanna take advice from fools.
You always won every time you placed a bet.
Money, that's what I want.
I'm Joe Duffy, CEO of OffshoreInsiders.com. One of the biggest keys to winning in sports betting is to be able to think outside the box. You have to know what regression to the mean is, as well as counterintuitive reasoning, and that helps isolate overvalued and undervalued teams and pitchers in sports betting. Now, this is so true in every single solitary sport. At one extreme, admittedly, in football, there's quite a few systems in which we actually do bet with the big favorite and the hotter team, and it has a high units won and return on investment. In all the other sports, and especially at the other extreme in Major League Baseball, more than any other sport, betting on counterintuitive systems, or I should more accurately say, many of the most successful systems are really counterintuitive, and that is going with a bad pitcher and or against a good pitcher, or going with a very bad team and or against a high quality team. Now, why is it more so in baseball than any other sport? There are at least two major reasons. First of all, I've said time and time again, the odds makers tend to overvalue pitching when it comes to picking the odds, and therefore we can find more overpriced favorites in Major League Baseball than you're going to find in any other sport. Number two, the Joey Bag of Donuts. The guy seems to be much more unaffected and not afraid of betting a big money line favorite than they are of laying a big point spread. And it's really summed up best by the single biggest degenerate gambler I've ever known. He used to always say, you know, when a game wins, you don't have to pay the juice. That's 100% true, and it would be a good gambling strategy if you hit 100% of your bets. I got news for you. He didn't hit 100% of his bets, and nobody does. In reality, the sharp retort would be the bookmaker actually has to pay you the juice when you pick underdogs that win. Remember, when it comes to money lines, and Major League Baseball, of course, money line is the most popular way to bet, that you are not paid on your winning percentage. Winning percentage and winnings really don't have a lot to do with each other, because if you're betting big favorites, of course, you might have to hit 65% just to break even, but if you're hitting a lot of underdogs, you can hit 60%. I'm sorry, you can hit 40% and turn a profit. So let's give you some very specific. We have a lot of angles in all sports that win. Let's give you some ones in baseball that really jump out as somewhat counterintuitive. If you've got one starting pitcher who's got an ERA of 3 runs or less lower than the opponent starting pitcher, of course, what is the knee-jerk reaction going to be? You want to bet on the superior starting pitcher. No way in heck do you want to bet on the inferior pitcher in this big mismatch. And we also say that if the pitcher is laying at least $1.50 or more, which verifies and it'll cancel out maybe early season where after 2 or 3 starts, each pitcher has a deceptive ERA. So anytime a pitcher has an ERA of at least 3 runs per game lower than his opponent, and he is laying $1.50 or more, yeah, you've won 498 times going with the superior pitcher, lost only 282 times, but you have lost more than 89 units. If you're betting on the underdog in that situation, of course, with the big favorites, there's a lot of juice there. You've won at 20.8 units. Now, granted, when you're talking about such a wide sample, a system where you've only won 21 units isn't that great. But again, that's 21 units, of course, after the juice. But more importantly, you're avoiding a trap. As I said, the knee-jerk reaction is to bet with the superior pitcher, so you're turning a frown upside down. You're turning a big loss into a small win, and that is a big sum net gain. Now, how about when you got 2 starting pitchers with an ERA of 5 or higher? What's going to be the immediate knee-jerk reaction? As I said, of course, you're going to say you're going to bet the over. You got 2 terrible pitchers, going to be a high-scoring game, bet the over. Well, I got news for you. It's actually going under 722, 610 with 62 pushes. Now, some out there, you might have your calculator. You're like, all right, well, that's 54.2%. Not too bad, but I hear touts out there advertising 80%, 90%, etc. Well, they're full of crap. I have news for you. Any professional gambler will tell you when it comes to a spread or when it comes to a total, if you can give him a bunch of systems that are hitting over 54%, covering 1,400 games or more, that is going to be a phenomenal starting point to make big money. And the reason we said starting point, we don't bet any systems blindly. It's only part of the preponderance of evidence. But I will tell you flat out, when you have 1,400 games and you're hitting over 54%, that's a pretty good system that you definitely want to track. Now, conversely, what happens when you have two starting pitchers who have an ERA of less than 2? Well, if you've been paying attention, now you're probably going to guess right. The public, what are they going to do? Say, I'll bet the under. It's going to be a low-scoring game. Could be a 1-0 game. Could be a 2-0 game. And you're right, it could be. It has gone under a lot, but it's gone over a lot more. When you have two stud pitchers like that, it has gone over at a 632, 548, and 46 rate. Now, again, 53%, that's not all that spectacular. It's a nice starting point. But more importantly, it saves you from that knee-jerk reaction. It'll save you from losing, and it'll turn a big loss into a small profit. Really, the main purpose of this video isn't to give you some spectacular jaw-dropping systems per se, although the first one's actually pretty good, but it is to tell you that you have to think outside the box. Don't blindly keep betting on the better pitcher or the better team. Don't blindly say you got two great pitchers, got to bet the under, two terrible pitchers, you've got to bet the over. Vertical thinking is the way to win in sports, and even more so in baseball betting. And another good example, you know, a lot of people use whip, walks and hits per innings pitch. If you got a pitcher with a whip of 1 or less and you bet that every single game since 2004, you would have lost 222 units, and that's based on 1 unit per bet. So again, the point is use the horizontal thinking for vertical profits, and that's why I've been winning publicly since the Score Phone days, 1988. Joe Duffy's Picks. I was known then as the Amazing Cadillac Club, but I've been winning publicly for more than a quarter century. And you add when I've been betting on my own and making some picks for my friends and close confederates, been literally winning for more than 30 years. And I plan on sticking around a while, so I'm going to be winning for another quarter century or so longer. For you, Joe Duffy's Picks, the best systems, the best metrics, proven more than a quarter century of public winning and more than 30 years of winning with the bookmaker. Joe Duffy's Picks, offshoreinsiders.com, going way back to the Score Phone days, long before the internet. Joe Duffy's Picks, offshoreinsiders.com.